Good morning, everyone. My name is Noah Campbell, Tech Community Program Manager for WEtech Alliance and the Windsor-Essex Economic Development Corporation, and the soon-to-be lead for government relations and strategic projects with WaveDirect. As part of my final official duties as Tech Community Program Manager, it is my privilege to welcome you here today to hear from some of the best of YQG's past, present, and future. To kick things off, I'd like to invite Yvonne Pilon, President and CEO of WEtech Alliance, and your host today, to the stage. I'm going to bring Yvonne up, and we'll all give her a good morning welcome. Fantastic.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? It's so good to see everybody pop in. We're a bit concerned. Remo is a new platform for probably many of you, but what a cool tool. We know some people are a bit on Zoom overload. So we're going to hop right into this. So again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our inaugural Tech Homecoming Day as part of Tech Week YQG. This is our 4th annual Tech Week. Today's event is powered by WEtech Alliance, Windsor-Essex Economic Development Corporation as our title sponsor for Tech Week 21, and in partnership with the Alumni Associations at St. Clair College, University of Windsor, and the Canadian Digital Media Network. Over the next 60 minutes, we will be bringing together Windsor area expats, alumni, newcomers, regional leaders to reconnect and reinvest in the place they once called or will soon call home, and join in on a discussion centered around how do we turn Windsor-Essex into an innovation hub. Since 2017, Tech Week has brought together thousands to build a unique experience for entrepreneurs, industry, investors, talent, partners, and community in a week-long things of everything technology. Like past years, Tech Week is powered by partnership, and I would like to take an opportunity to thank the many companies, organizations, and funders who made this event possible. Today's event marks event number 4 in Tech Week, and as you can see on the screen, there are many more events to come, and we encourage you to check out techweekyqg.com to learn more about a number of other events. All of today's attendees, speakers, and panelists will be receiving a limited edition Tech Homecoming digital art print that can be downloaded, printed at home, or printed locally. So now let me introduce myself. My name is Yvonne Pilon. I'm the President and CEO of WEtech Alliance. I am a proud Windsor-Essex resident, born and raised in Woodsley, Ontario, and now living in beautiful historic Walkerville. I am also a proud alumni of the University of Windsor's Odette School of Business, class of 2007. And to no surprise to anyone, for the last decade, myself and my team have made it our personal and professional mission to put YQG on the map. I am beyond thrilled to be moderating today's session, along with our event producer, the great Noah Campbell. So just quickly, some logistics. Again, we have a new platform. Some of you may not have been on to Remo, but if you want to join this discussion, feel free to just go to the side panel of your window, and you can chat with one-on-one with individuals or as a group using, again, the chat feature, or you can share all of this excitement on social media using the Tech Week YQG or Tech Homecoming YQG hashtag. If you would like to expand any of the slides, you'll see just the quick expander button on my slides, as you can see right now, if you want to expand any of these slides to make them a bit bigger. And you can also update your digital business card by looking at or checking out your icon on the top right corner, or even checking out individuals' icons, and again, connect to their social medias, LinkedIn, to get the digital business card. And finally, this presentation will be recorded, so in case you're not able to stay for the whole event, it will be shared on WEtech Alliance's YouTube channel and will be included in tomorrow's event follow-up attendee email. And lastly, before we get to the panel, you do have a Q&A function there, so please feel free at any point during the event to put in any questions you have for our panelists. You can also upvote those questions. So the irony, 365 days ago, maybe just a little bit over 365 days, our last in-person event, we brought Communitech Simon Chan to Windsor. for the Getting Windsor-Essex Ready for the Future of Work and Learning event, where we brought together close to 1,000 leaders to discuss how careers and workplaces are being redefined and what the implications are for communities like Windsor-Essex. Flash forward, future of work has been accelerated. Remote work is now the norm. The future now includes hybrid work schedules, flexible working hours, performance monitoring over employee monitoring, an increased need for mental health support and neurodiversity, a change in commercial real estate, a change in office space, an acceleration of co-working spaces, a race to reskill, and finally, the need to re-energize the workplace experience. This year, WEtech stood ready to do whatever we could to support our founders, the town and our community, and our community at large. We spent time educating ourselves minute by minute, day by day on new support measures, giving back to our community through fabrication and donation of over 500 3D printed face shields to frontline healthcare workers, leveraging our team and our networks across Ontario, Canada, North America, creating connections for our clients, building and delivering new support and recovery programs for women entrepreneurs and mainstream businesses such as F5 Refresh and Reload, the Digital Shift, and the Digital Main Street Future Proof program. Helping our companies scale back through our Scale Up Tech Accelerator program powered by Libro Credit Union, helping connecting healthcare workers with healthcare providers via our cross-border Med Health initiative, and listening to the challenges faced by our regional tech CEOs and businesses across the region through our Tech CEO peer group and our Ignition program. Teaching and training corporate innovation through our Innovation Catalyst program, empowering thousands of students to build the Windsor-Essex of the future via our Tech Connect Minecraft tournament. And finally, taking a moment to reflect back on the last decade as we celebrated our 10-year milestone on February 11th. Over the last 365 days, we have seen entrepreneurs pivot, grow, innovate, and diversify. These on the screen are just a few of the many headlines we saw this past year that demonstrate the resilience of this region's peoples and companies. Despite a full year of curveballs and pivots, one thing has remained a top priority here at WEtech, and that is to do our very best and keep things business as virtual. To our close to 300 clients, this includes connecting them to funding, to tech perks, to experts, entrepreneurs and residents, market intelligence, clients, and even helping them develop new 30, 60, 90-day development plans. And a big shout out to Adam Castle, our Director of Venture Services, and Chelsea Hunt, our Business Advisor for Startup Services, who have been literally working around the clock to keep our companies ready to go and to tackle the new future. This next year, we'll continue to build on 10 years of our foundation of supporting entrepreneurs and championing innovation in Windsor-Essex and Chatham-Kent. On the screen right now, you can see a bit of our 2021 and 22 areas of focus. They include a regional reach. It's all about growing access to entrepreneurs across Windsor-Essex and Chatham-Kent. We know there are more founders out there, and we want to connect with them. We want to activate the experts and entrepreneurs. We know that entrepreneurs need to be in the driver's seat, and we know that people who've been there and done that are the best to be advising our companies as they scale and grow. Intellectual property, it is about educating our clients, protecting their ideas, and preparing for the intangible future. Access to capital, it's about unlocking access to vertical for funding for our regional entrepreneurs, working in partnership with Windsor-Essex Capital Angel Network, Equation Angels, and many of our other investment partners. Colliding the innovation ecosystem. We know when ecosystems collide, innovation explodes. And sector focus, it is about maximizing our economic opportunities for the future economy. Next slide, Noah. As we look to the future, our success will be achieved by growing more tech and tech-enabled companies, growing more founders, connecting more talent within the innovation ecosystem, and creating a place for tech. One thing I noticed when I was looking through all the registrations was I really want a sense of place. I want a sense of belonging. And I think that is something that we need to work on as a community over the next year, is a sense of place and building that for the tech innovation ecosystem. All while we'll do that, it's all about regional economic impact through dollars facilitated to our clients and to our regional ecosystem through partnerships with government, industry, and community members. Now, before we welcome our distinguished guests and panelists to the stage, we have a few special guests who would like to share some remarks with you. I am pleased that Windsor-Tecumseh Member of Parliament Irek Kusmierczyk and Matthew Johnson, Director of Mobility and Innovation at WindsorEssex Economic Development Corporation, are joining us today. It is now my pleasure to invite our first speaker, Windsor-Tecumseh MP Irek Kusmierczyk, and a former WEtecher to the stage. Irek and his family have lived in Windsor-Tecumseh riding for more than 35 years after immigrating to Canada from Poland. Irek was elected as a City of Windsor councillor for 3 consecutive elections. During his time on council, successfully advocating for historic investments in flood protection, road improvements, libraries, and parks that improve quality of life. He was elected to Parliament in 2019. I will never forget that day, to represent residents in Windsor-Tecumseh, and shortly thereafter, he was appointed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to serve as Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, Disability Inclusion. His wife, Shauna, is a graduate of the University of Windsor and a local nurse practitioner serving residents in Windsor-Essex and Pelee Island. As the former Director of Partnerships for WEtech Alliance, I know Irek is excited to join us for our inaugural Tech Homecoming. Irek, you are now able to join us on stage. Thank you for joining us. And it appears we are waiting for Irek to join us. And here we go.
We do have him on the stage, but Irek, if you could just turn on your camera and your microphone, you should be good to go.
The mic on. Are you guys seeing me?
There we go. There we go. Pardon the bit of difficulties here. We're going to get Irek on stage. Irek, I'm glad you gave me the short bio.
It wouldn't be a tech conference without some technical difficulties, right? So
that's what happens.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Yvonne, and congratulations to WEtech Alliance and the Windsor-Essex Economic Development Corporation for yet another successful Tech Week YQG. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, the Ojibwa, and the Potawatomi. So today's theme of Tech Homecoming hits me right in the feels a little bit, because this is very much a homecoming for me, having been a part of WEtech Alliance and our exceptional tech ecosystem for the better part of a decade. I want to take a second to extend a warm welcome to our incoming CAO at the City of Windsor, Jason Reynar, who is joining us here today. Welcome, Jason. Having served as a city councillor, I very much appreciate the challenges of leading a multifaceted $1 billion corporation, but I'm also excited about the tremendous opportunities that I see before the City of Windsor. And so I very much look forward to working with you and your team to maximize senior level investments in our community. I want to start off and go on record to state that I am a big fan of Windsor Works economic strategy that was recently put forward by the mayor and by council. And I'm a big fan because it largely gets the priorities right. Diversification, talent attraction and retention, quality of life, leveraging our proximity to Detroit, partnerships. And it also talks about KPIs, or key performance indicators. And I happen to think that those are the 3 most important letters in Windsor Works, because it is a way to keep ourselves and each other accountable. And as a great mentor of mine once said, or often said, if you treasure it, you measure it. And I'm a big fan of Windsor Works because the work has already begun, thanks to organizations like WEtech Alliance, the Windsor-Essex Economic Development Corporation, the Epicenter at the University of Windsor, the Genesis Center at St. Clair College, Build a Dream, Workforce Windsor-Essex, Windsor-Essex First Robotics. And I know that Yvonne had probably had some side bets going on to see how long it would take me to actually mention First Robotics in these remarks. You know, I could name off a dozen organizations that have been doing the work of Windsor Works for a decade. They have formed a vibrant ecosystem. They have an immense storehouse of knowledge and expertise ready to share. They have established rich networks, not just across Windsor-Essex, but across the border, with our American friends and counterparts like TechTown Detroit, and across the continent through forums like TechNow, which is the Technology Councils of North America. All we have to do is listen to them, partner with them, empower them to lead from the ground up. And I will tell you why it matters that we get it right. It matters because our community stands at a crossroads. We are on the cusp of a generational transformation. Recall, it was less than 2 years ago that we were talking about the closure of the GM plant in Oshawa and the loss of the third shift at Windsor Assembly Plant. And prospects look grim for manufacturing towns like ours. Yet here we are, within months of the federal government negotiating a better and stronger trade agreement through CUSMA, one that tilts the playing field notably in our favor. Over $5 billion in auto investments are announced in southwestern Ontario in less than a year. And that includes a major auto investment at the Windsor Assembly Plant that's going to bring back 2,000 jobs to our community. The government's commitment to net zero emissions by 2050 and a $15 billion investment through the Healthy Environment and Healthy Economy National Strategy sends a powerful signal to tech companies that we are going to help you build your zero emission technology right here. And sure enough, as the headlines across the Windsor Star recently indicated, we are talking to companies about building gigafactories in WindsorEssex as we speak. And that's just one example from one sector. You know, if the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that we must develop domestic manufacturing capacity, whether it's PPEs, vaccines, or batteries. And our federal government just led the largest mobilization of industry since the Second World War to produce personal protective equipment. And you had local companies like Harbor Technologies and Windsor Mold Group leading that charge. We are at a juncture point that is full of opportunity and optimism. And part of that is homegrown and organic. It's the strength of a community that knows how to build things at a time when made in Canada means more than it ever has. And part of that stems from having a federal government that is aligned with our region's strengths and our region's aspirations. Investments in brick and mortars and intellectual property. It's making investments in human capital, people, us, you and I, making historic investments in skills training, opening the doors to more immigrants than our country has ever seen, empowering Canadians that have long faced barriers to full participation in our economy through the first ever Women Entrepreneurship Strategy and the first ever Black Entrepreneurship Fund. In our community's diversity, there is strength, but we need investment and we need collaboration to fully unlock it. And so here we are at a homecoming. And a homecoming to me means coming together. No matter the road that brought us here, no matter that we may have even been on divergent paths, whether you came from Innisfil or Istanbul or Indianapolis, here is home. Know that we appreciate your talents and we're glad that you're here. And now I am proud to introduce the next speaker, Matthew Johnson, or MJ as I like to call him. Originally from Bell River, is the Director of Automobility and Innovation at the WindsorEssex Economic Development Corporation. Matthew has nearly a decade of experience delivering government funding programs and is responsible for delivering strategic partnerships in the innovation and ICT sector for the Development Corporation. Matthew has worked with all three levels of government in Canada in an economic development role and holds a Master's of Public Service from the University of Waterloo. He also received the Deputy Minister's Award for his work at the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Food and the Ontario Ministry of Rural Affairs. Matthew, as I mentioned, grew up in Windsor-Essex and has lived abroad before returning home to support economic growth in his community. Welcome to the conference, Matthew. I'm just going to pass it on to you. Go ahead, Matt.
Great. Thanks so much, Eric, and thank you for the warm introduction. I love the nickname MJ. Unfortunately, I'm not the basketball player like the real one. He's far better than I am. And thank you, Yvonne, for the invitation today to provide a little bit of some background into The work that we're doing at the Windsor-Essex Economic Development Corporation, as well as some of the work we're touching on for our automobility and innovation team here. So Noah, if you want to advance. So we are the lead economic development agency for the region of Windsor-Essex. And we predominantly work out of 4 varying departments. We have a small business and entrepreneurship center that is really critical for developing and scaling up local entrepreneurs here in Windsor-Essex, as well as supporting Main Street entrepreneurs through grants like the Women Entrepreneurship Fund, as well as the RE3 grant that has recently been a vital component during these times with COVID. We have a business retention and expansion team. This team is really our boots on the ground, working with local companies to help either access new markets, new vendors, new suppliers, and make the connections and touch points between companies in our community. My colleague Lee McGrath has done a fantastic job kicking off Tech Week with 2 emerging tech days for YQG Tech Week. So I hope everyone had a chance to check out a couple of those sessions. We also have our investment attraction and marketing team. So this really is our group that focuses on foreign direct investment into the region. MP Kusmierczyk had mentioned some of the leads that we're working on currently, and he's right. There are currently 5 battery electric vehicle and battery manufacturing companies looking at this region to set up large factories to develop it within this region. And a lot of that is spurred around the work that's been done by all of the departments, as well as the strategy that we've developed here in the Automobility and Innovation Department. So this is the group that I work with predominantly out of our Automobility and Innovation Center over by the YQG Airport. So we also house the largest virtual reality cave in Canada right now that is able to be used for commercialization of autonomous vehicle and connected vehicle technology. So next slide, please. So when we talk about automobility, I think the term really needs to be defined and clarified so that everybody understands the strategy as well as the framework around what we're focusing on here in this department. So really we're talking about the secure zero emission movement of people, goods, and services, and all of the IT technology related to that. So it's not just focusing on the automobile itself, it's focusing on the movement of goods from point A to point B. It's focusing on active transportation. It's focusing on our green energy plans. We really wanted to leverage the strengths of the region when defining and developing this framework. So we definitely focused on our auto manufacturing history and expertise in the region. We've seen a transition of our local economy from auto manufacturing into automation and developing a lot of new technology and Internet of Things into a lot of our automation companies here locally. So it seemed like a natural transition to move into this automobility sector. We know that that Windsor-Essex is the automotive capital of Canada, and our goal really is to be the automobility capital of Canada. Next slide. So the work that we conduct out of the Automobility and Innovation Department is really focused on these 4 buckets. We've all heard of the CASE strategy: connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. We've developed a bit of a twist on our current framework for the region. We are focusing on connected, autonomous, and electrification, but we've updated our framework to include cybersecurity. This is really the work that we think is going to be critical in the next 3 to 5 years, especially around auto cybersecurity, as we start looking at the various domains of cybersecurity, whether that's the plant floor, the products themselves, or the vehicle. We held a session on day 2 and 3 around cybersecurity and some of the work that's going on locally here, and it was very well attended. So I encourage everybody to go back and check out some of those sessions as well. Next slide. So where do we begin? In 2017, we established the building that I'm currently working out as a Windsor-Essex Economic Development Department. And we received some initial funding through the at the time, the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network. This was provided to us from the Ontario Centres of Excellence and really allowed us to create some of the projects and initiatives that I'll talk about a little bit later. But really, we were one of 6 regional technology development sites across Ontario that was identified to do cybersecurity testing as well as virtual and simulation testing for connected autonomous vehicles. This is really outside of an economic development purview, so it was really kind of an innovative opportunity for our organization to be jumping into something like this. We've since been able to hire some virtual reality engineers and analysts into our organization to start develop and building out some of our projects around virtual reality and simulation. In 2019, we received some funding from the federal government to really help spur a number of new initiatives in the connected, autonomous, cybersecurity, and electrification fields. And you can see here, it bolstered a number of initiatives that we've been able to work with partners from across the region on. And when I say partners, I mean groups like the university, St. Clair College, WEtech Alliance, Workforce WindsorEssex, the WindsorEssex Regional Chamber of Commerce, the City of Windsor, the County of Essex, and all of the lower tier municipalities within the region. So we're really excited to work with all of these partners to help deliver some of these initiatives and make sure that we're all aligned on this vision of automobility and pushing forward this strategic innovation framework. Next slide. So where do we go from here? We're really looking to enhance our work under our existing funding agreements. We've also put in a new application to FedDev for a continuation and fund the implementation side of our ecosystem building grant. We're looking at increasing our strategic partnerships in the case sector. We've built a lot of partners locally, and when I say locally, I also mean regionally with the City of Detroit, groups like Automation Alley, as well as Detroit Mobility Labs. And we really want to create a really strong framework and strong partnership network here in the region. We want to become a test bed in the region for connected and autonomous vehicles. There's a lot of opportunities leveraging our virtual reality cave to do a lot of the validation testing in a virtual environment before actually deploying into a real world scenario. And I'm happy to say that one of the projects that we've been working on is very close to being deployed in the virtual reality cave, but we've just completed the first LiDAR scan of the Windsor-Detroit tunnel, which is a city-owned piece of infrastructure that's going to allow us to do some virtual testing of autonomous vehicles moving through the tunnel. So we're really excited to showcase that in the coming months. We're also looking at developing a regional data strategy. One of the things we've learned through the number of initiatives that have been outlined on the previous slide is that we're able to collect a tremendous amount of data, whether it be from vehicles themselves or actual projects that we're working on. This presents a tremendous opportunity to establish a data trust amongst all of our partners within the case framework. We also are looking to leverage major infrastructure assets. So as I mentioned, the tunnel project that we've been working on is very close to being deployed. And we're now in conversations about creating a digital twin of the bridge, as well as potentially the new regional hospital. And our final, where do we go from here, is really supporting the recommendations of the Windsor Works report. So we're looking to provide the quick wins for implementations that have been outlined in the Windsor Works report. There are a number of initiatives here that that would be excellent first steps for a lot of the recommendations. And from there, we'll be able to actually support and grow the Windsor Works report. So with that, I think I'm turning it back over to Yvonne. And I would just like to say, Yvonne, congratulations on a great event. We're excited to be partners with you, and we're looking forward to an amazing YQG Tech Week.
Thanks, Matt. It's been so awesome just following along with the chat and listening to you. It never gets old talking about what the future looks like. And it's so important to have this conversation because I think a lot of people don't know the great work that's being done to diversify the economy. And you're going to hear, and you have heard, Windsor Works. And it is a City of Windsor strategy, although I think there's lots of realities of this is a regional strategy in terms of the 4 pillars. So Matt, thank you. I can't agree with, I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the partnerships that are being made. And again, I really commend the Economic Development Corporation for helping lead a lot of these initiatives. So thank you, Matt. And to Irek, if you're still on, thank you so much for your remarks. And just know that where WEtech is today is a lot because of your passion, the hard work you put in during your 6+ years tenure at WEtech. So we definitely miss you as part of WEtech. And I encourage everyone to keep talking in the chat. If you have questions, there's someone on our team or Matt or Noah can answer them. So it is now time for the main event. I'm glad to see our numbers are continuing to rise. Again, this is going to be recorded for those who can't be part of the full panel discussion, but it is really an incredible time to be coming home to Windsor-Essex or just coming here generally. Some people are coming back because of the past. They grew up here, they have friends and family here, but then there are others that they're coming back because of the future. Because these days, the future of automobility is being imagined and virtually tested here. You can see cranes and machines lined up at the Herb Gray Parkway. We are constructing a once-in-a-generational bridge linking the US and Canada right here. You can smell the dried distiller grains as you pass by Hiram Walker, North America's largest beverage distillery. We are distilling the future here. Windsor-Essex is moving, and we are so thrilled to give a big welcome and a welcome back to some new and old friends to YQG. So to help guide today's panel discussion, we are going to center around the Windsor Work. So this is the City of Windsor's Economic Diversification Plan that was unanimously approved by City Council in March. And those 4 themes include location, infrastructure, future economy, and of course, the big T, talent. I would now like to introduce our panel of distinguished guests. They are newcomers, they are expats, they are alumni, and they are technology and innovation leaders. First up, we have Kristina Verner. She is the Vice President, Innovation, Sustainability, and Prosperity at Waterfront, Toronto. She is also a proud alumni of the University of Windsor, now living near Toronto. We have Nicolas Seguin. He is the Manager of Mobility Analytics at Ford Global Data Insights and Analytics. He is an alumni of St. Clair College, now living in Michigan. Jason Reynar, the incoming CAO at City of Windsor and former CAO at the town of Innisfil. He is a new resident to Windsor-Essex. And Bekim Merdita, Vice President, Sales and Business Development at Edison Financial, a new Windsor-based digital mortgage startup who has recently set roots in downtown Windsor, and I can tell you they are growing day by day. Welcome back, welcome to Windsor-Essex. It's so nice to see everyone in one room.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thanks, Yvonne.
I know we've gone back and forth many times getting this ready, and it's been so, I sent this invitation and everyone said yes instantly, and what better time to reconnect with expats, alumni than right now. There's no travel required. And I do want to give a shout out. We've got a lot of City of Windsor employees on the line. So Jason, some of your new team members are here watching, excited to see you. So let's get started. So we put together some questions. We're going to start with an icebreaker. So Windsor Pizza, we know it's a thing. On February 16th, a Windsor couple actually started a March Madness style local pizza bracket, hoping to learn what pizza Windsorites love best. So I want to know, and for those that are listening in, please chime in through the chat. What is your go-to Windsor style pizza? And I'll start with you, Bekim, where you live here. So what's your go-to?
If we're choosing Windsor style, it's Armando's for me.
Okay. And Kristina, when you come home, where are you going? What are you craving in Ancaster?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, there's lots of good choices of like Arcata, Armando's, Antoninos, but for me, it's the go-to is Capri with the double cheese, wonderful Galati cheese, pepperoni, and those signature sliced mushrooms. Yes, they're canned, and people in Toronto can't figure out why we like it, but have to have at least one pizza when we're down every time.
For sure. And Nicolas, how about you? I'm not sure how often you come to Windsor, but do you have a go-to?
Oh my gosh, this is really painful. If I hadn't understood that I was going to be tortured this morning, I probably would have declined this event. But you know, my wife, it's a very sensitive pain point for my wife and I. We both miss Windsor pizza, and adjusting to local pizza and the taste of pizza has been difficult. And then, as you know, I was previously with Domino's, and so I had a favorite, you know, for some time. But I do very much miss Capri pizza. You know, being out in the county, that was often our choice. So yeah, this is bringing back memories for sure. Miss that crust that I can't get here. So now I can't wait for the border to reopen and take the family for a drive.
I feel like pizza sales are going to increase this afternoon. And Jason, we talked earlier, and you have really done a lot of your prep work virtually. So have you heard of Windsor Pizza, and is there anything you're excited for? And if you need recommendations, just look at the chat.
Yeah, this is great. I actually had heard that Capri Pizza was really, really good. And so I embarrassingly consumed an enormous amount of Capri Pizza when I was down looking at houses. And you know, when it's in this world at the time, I think we were pretty much in lockdown or something. So I had to just take the pizza in my car, and then there was a box at the end. So anyway, embarrassing, but it was delicious. It was really good.
I agree. And I believe the Windsor, the March Madness bracket, Arcata, I believe, took home top prize. So I am definitely, Antonino's is one of my favorites, as well as Winology Pizza, a bit different style, wood oven or coal oven pizza, but awesome stuff. So opening question. So I'd love everyone just to talk briefly about their background and connection to WindsorEssex, and a bit of, you know, for those who left, you know, what was WindsorEssex as you knew it? I'm going to start with Kristina. You've been away now for what seems like forever, and you were really, you know, the role that I worked with you over 10 years ago was bringing Windsor to the top 7 smartest communities in the world. So Kristina, why don't you start off?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Windsor, just like you, Yvonne, and I actually never thought I would leave. So 3-time alumni of the University of Windsor. My family's all still there, really. I was a member of the WEtech board way back in the day, and a member of the Essex CFDC board, very involved with the community while I was there. And the community and my identity were kind of inextricably linked. For those of you who remember, I worked at the University of Windsor in what was known then as the Center for Smart Community Innovation for 13 years, or WEdNet. And had led the bid for Windsor to be recognized in the top 7 in the world in terms of the Intelligent Community Forum. And, you know, it was and still remains my hometown all the time. And it's the first place, actually, I still read the Windsor Star every morning when I wake up. And it's the thing that I think about when I go to bed at night. It still will always be my home, and thinking about how do we actually advance the region. One of our former CEOs from Waterfront, Toronto, where I'm at now, and the reason why I left is it's really a once-in-a-generational opportunity for a waterfront revitalization project. It's actually North America's largest revitalization project. So he said, you know, how is it that every meeting that we're in, no matter who you're talking to, everything leads back to Windsor? He says, no idea how much Windsor was everywhere. So that's been kind of where I've made sure that we keep the Windsor brand going, and changing the narrative too about what people are thinking about for Windsor in terms of, you know, the progressiveness and the innovation, and making sure that's top of mind for them. And, you know, I still stayed connected. Even though I physically left, I still teach at the university as a sessional instructor in computer science. And that's been kind of my way to give back, even from afar. And as I said, it's my love and it's my hometown.
Thanks, Kristina. Nicolas, how about you? You know, a bit about your background and your connection to Windsor.
So I'm definitely identify more as a county kid, right? I grew up out in the cornfields and soybean fields. I remember riding my bike, you know, miles to get to friends and cousins' houses. That was the norm. Although back then there weren't all the windmills that I hear are there now, so that's a big change. But you know, I grew up in a household, a CAW household, and so being very linked to the automotive ups and downs, you know. And you know, that being the main source of our income, you know, seeing, you know, you know, my father worked at Plant 3 for 30 years, and so I did too when I was in college. So I understand how important it is to the region, and observing the changes over time. You know, I knew what I wanted to do in the field that I wanted to get into from a very young age, and so I kind of had my sights set on a technology career, and I felt like from an early age that I probably needed to leave the region to achieve those goals. I know that, you know, we're working on those things have changed since I've left, and we're continuing to work to make them change. But at least for me back then, knowing that the opportunities for me at least existed likely, you know, in the big cities, right? And then I kind of just fell into moving to Michigan over time as economic opportunity took me this way.
Well, we know you're not far, Nicolas, so we'll get you back. That's part of this. There's a mastermind behind why we're doing this. Bekim, you and I know each other quite well, but for those that don't know you, why don't you share a bit of your story?
Yeah, sure. So let's maybe start with how I ended up in Windsor in the first place. 2006 World Cup. A little nation called Italy was making a run and ended up winning the World Cup. There was a celebration on a street called Erie Street, for those of you who are local to Windsor, and that is where I met my now wife. So we're going on, what is that? Help me with math, Yvonne, 15-ish years or so. We met on Erie Street, 2006 World Cup, dated for some years. So I was working in Detroit, and I started falling in love with Windsor slowly all the while. And I always would keep it quiet because Sonia was under the impression that she was going to be moving over to Detroit if things ever continued to get serious, and we got married. And I kept falling in love with Windsor day by day. Some of it was the pizza, some of it was the people and the environment, and then ultimately made the decision to move over to Windsor and surprised her, and started the process from there. Started my commute back and forth. Was still working for a U.S. company, crossing the border every single day, and that's what brought me to Windsor in the first place. And now I find myself back in Windsor for work with an opportunity, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit more.
No, we definitely will. We've got Edison Financial Rocket Innovation Studios are a great story for us as we talk about our Windsor Detroit advantage. But now moving to Jason. So Jason, again, I think everyone gave you a big welcome. You really are a newbie to WindsorEssex. So I'm curious to see, you're coming from the town of Innisfil, and the last I checked, it's about, according to the 2016 census, about 40,000 people. So what did you know about WindsorEssex before you took on the new role?
Good question, Yvonne. I'm embarrassed to say not a whole lot, and not nearly the gem that I'm discovering the WindsorEssex area is. Really, really excited to get to know it better. My main connection with Windsor actually was my grandfather worked for American Motors. And I remember the stories of the sort of, I don't know if we call it the heyday or not, but of the sort of 50s and 60s and what that was like. He lived in Windsor and commuted over to Detroit, and I remember those stories, and it's really interesting. And I'm excited to be a part of this sort of revitalization that you've spoken about, Yvonne, and I think a number of people. And it's really palpable. Like the people that I talk to, from government, from business, from residents, and even though I don't officially start until April 6th, I'm getting that sense that people are ready for what Windsor will become. The potential is huge, and I want to be a part of that, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
No problem. And for Jason, I'll ask some of our attendees today if you have any recommendations for things to do and see. I know we have Pina on the line from Windsor Eats. Jason, if you ever want to understand a bit of our from the distilleries to wineries, they'd be a great company to reach out to. And again, feel free to share some more recommendations. And I know Nicolas will be joining back up. We had a bit of a technical difficulty, but let's move on to location. So again, the first theme of the Windsor Work Strategy, really talking about the unique opportunities we have with Windsor and Detroit. And, Bekim, I'm going to start with you. We saw, in fact, you and I have been on a podcast together talking about the Amazon H2 Qubit and how that really led this better relationship building between Windsor and Detroit, and this aha moment of, hey, Canada's got talent. WindsorEssex has talent. And, flash forward it seems like 2 years later, Edison Financial now has taken over the old fish market. RIS is there. I don't even know what the last number count is, 50 plus employees, constantly seeing new job hires. What do you really think are those advantages for nearshoring, and how can we better attract other startups like Edison Financial, like Rocket Innovation Studios to leverage that cross-border opportunity? Any thoughts?
Yeah, and just for an update there, since I know we always do this every time, we're at 55 at Edison now. We're at 4 March of 2020, so we're growing quickly. And then Rocket Innovation Studio, our RIS team's now up to just over 70 at last check. So teams are growing fast, and it's really exciting. We've got that big building, but we're all pretty much remote right now, although some of us are returning here in a couple of weeks. For us, I mean, I think back to 2019. We got in a room and we said, hey, let's start a mortgage business in Canada. Where do we do that? And Windsor just made sense. So, we had our headquarters in is from Vancouver and still lives out there today. But the proximity to Detroit was the biggest ticket for us. Our chief revenue officer, Chad Weinbaum, still commutes every single day. He's our only commuter. Everyone else is really local to Windsor. It was a really easy track across the border for us to be able to get back and forth, which, I think about Ford, I think about, any of the big three, anyone in the mobility space really, that presents a really good opportunity in that regard. But proximity is key, but then also talent, right? In so many ways, Windsor is like a smaller Detroit. Metro Detroit, roughly 4.3 million people. WindsorEssex, I think we're somewhere in the ballpark of like 330-ish, depending on where you draw the line, but 330,000 or so people. Blue collar town going back to the 50s, had its boom days, right? And ultimately, as the economy and the market changed, I would say both cities struggled to adjust to those changes quickly and efficiently. So people left, young talent left specifically. And that was really the case for Detroit in many ways. When I graduated from college and university, the first thing that all my friends did was get on a plane or a train, and they went to Chicago or they went to LA or they went to New York to go find, an innovative role that they were passionate about. That really wasn't existing in Detroit. It was created by Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage, and I was a part of that resurgence. And I look at Windsor as the same way. People graduate from the university here, and if they want a job in tech or they want, something in an innovative space, they get on a plane, train, or the automobile, and they drive to Waterloo, or they go to Toronto, or they go to Vancouver. And we're here, and what excites us every day is, telling people, like, you don't have to leave. Take that talent, stay here, work with us, and we can create opportunities together. And it's not just through Edison and Rocket. It's hopefully creating an innovation hub in downtown Windsor that other people can capitalize on and capture some of that energy as well.
If you heard my earlier remarks, and our 5-year goal is to really build a clubhouse, and we've talked about it, Bekim, of that sense of place. Bekim, just quickly, what do you think we can learn from the U.S. neighbors? You talked about the revitalization of Detroit. What are some of the learnings? You lived it. You were part of the move downtown, 10 plus years ago with Quicken Loans. What can we learn as a region from Detroit and our U.S. neighbors?
We learned a lot about tax rebates. We learned a lot about the city getting involved. Really, I mean, the city had to get involved. Like, how do you go to a city who's in bankruptcy and ask for tax rebates so you could set up office space in downtown, right? Like, those are tough asks, and that was the case in Detroit. But ultimately, the question was, but if we don't, then what, right? If we don't, then what? And luckily, it's paid off. But there was a lot of collaboration. I think that first and foremost, it started with the mix between government and private sector, and talking to each other and saying, really, government, how can we help you? And then private sector saying, well, if you give us that, here's how we could pay you back. We pay you back with people. We pay you back with foot traffic, right? We pay you back with jobs. And we did that, and we executed on that strategy. And I think back to, Dan Gilbert standing before us all the time saying, when you see families on the weekends coming to walk through downtown, that will mean that we did something meaningful, because in those days there was no one walking through downtown on the weekends. And I still go to downtown Windsor now for work in my office and pass through. And there aren't a lot of families walking around. There isn't a lot of retail. And the folks who were hanging on for dear life for quite a while there, they've been pushed out by the pandemic because they have further lost foot traffic. So it starts with jobs, number one. It starts with jobs every single time. Then the jobs bring the people, they bring the restaurants, they bring the shoe shine shop and everyone else, and then the housing follows. So that really was the plan, was start with jobs. People who are entrepreneurial, they'll set up the local sub shop. They'll set up the sandwich shop.
Yeah.
If they see people walking around. They took that, and here we are today.
Thanks, Bekim. And Nick, coming from living in Michigan, what do you think are those the opportunities for Windsor and Detroit to leverage each other better?
Yeah, I mean, right next door. I mean, the geography lends Windsor to tremendous benefit, right? I mean, you're right next to Michigan, and I don't know that the region fully understands the opportunity that's available to partner with right there, right? Like, the Free Press recently talked about mobility, representing 28% of Michigan's gross economic output. The number of jobs and economic opportunity is tremendous, and the area and the growth in this sector is unbelievable. We're constantly adding roles and getting new opportunities, and the market's competition is fierce. And as a hiring manager in this space, I simply just can't find the talent to fill the roles that I'm trying to fill. And like, Bekim had said, we've got University of Windsor graduates, St. Clair graduates, looking for that opportunity in the tech space and getting on a train and a plane and going wherever they think that those opportunities are. And they don't realize that those opportunities are right here in their backyard. Now, are they right in Windsor just yet? Maybe not, right? Maybe there's a commute factor. Maybe there's some visa requirements. There's things like that. But that's that first step, is get your foot in the door on all these opportunities. And for us too, is like connect that talent with the demand, like and because we're having to reach all over to try to get that talent, and we have talent is great. At least from my perspective, right, this fantastic bucket of talent right in our backyard that maybe we're not even fully leveraging as well.
No, I couldn't agree more. We did a Tech Connect survey about a year ago, and one of the big takeaways was that students were leaving, not because they wanted to, because they didn't know what opportunities existed. So I think it's a role that WEtech can play, and also industry can play. And I know it's so important to build those roots here. And I think too, if we're talking a little bit about manufacturing and auto, traditionally, it's looked at as the assembly, shift the kind of marketing side of like, this is a sexy environment now. It's very tech, it's a computer on wheels. So there's also, I think, a bit of a shift there that we need to do in terms of kind of remarketing or rebranding the auto sector. Because I see, again, Nick, what you're working on and what you worked on even in your previous role at Domino's with autonomous technologies and whatnot. So any other input from Jason and Kristina? Kristina, I'm not sure if there's a waterfront element to that, because we do have literally the most beautiful waterfront on both sides.
Absolutely. And, it was interesting listening to Bekim and to Nicolas. The notion of the brain drain piece is really important, and that's part of changing that narrative. I think there was this sense that, you had to leave to go and learn or grow outside of WindsorEssex and then think about coming back. So that was certainly the model that I was told, was like, you have outgrown this fish tank, time to go on to a larger aquarium, go learn, swim with the big fishes and come back. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case anymore. But switching to the Detroit narrative and some of the lessons learned front, I still remember one of the ICF judges or jurors down, and they were so shocked at how omnipresent Detroit was in our identity. And we actually showcased that relationship between Windsor and Detroit, and even the physicality of having the Detroit skyline there. And he's like, oh my goodness. And this was back in 2011. So still in some of those rough days with Detroit, he's like, that looms so large. It's like a constant reminder of what you guys have to try and not become in terms of the rough patches of Detroit. And I really think that kind of was a bit of a rallying point for WindsorEssex to work together and make sure that the depths didn't get quite as low. And but certainly, like, the collaboration that happens between Windsor and Detroit, I don't think people realize the wonderful kind of relationship that we all have in terms of innovation, but also in terms of healthcare. It's not just nurses going out to Detroit to go and work and then come home. The amount of cross-border healthcare work that is happening and services that are provided are quite remarkable. And even the interinstitutional programming that happens between the university and the universities in Detroit, like, there's so much that's been going on for so long, and we can just deepen that. But the actual physical waterfront in Windsor is something that historically has been done so well in terms of protecting such a valuable asset. And not very many places in the world get that right. And Windsor has a huge opportunity to look at that as a vital organ or spine to the whole region. And you think about what that really connects and the number of different historical points along the way in the history and culture of the region, and that is actually woven through the Riverside Drive kind of waterfront center that we have, whether you're going from Sandwich all the way over to Walkerville, and then the story that gets told along that waterfront and the richness that's there, but the opportunities around things like active transportation. And how do you actually leverage that waterfront much more intentionally so that it becomes an option for people to actually kind of go through and become part of their daily commute? I mean, it's a beautiful commute. If there was a way to actually ride your bike and walk, or you take one of the scooter rentals that was just going forward to council and go between places, connects the university campus from the West Campus to downtown. Just phenomenal opportunities. And programming, I think, is really key to bring families down. To Nicolas's point, like, there isn't always a lot of families down there. And to Bekim's point, there's not a lot that is usually there and offered for people of all ages and stages. So how do you think about it more broadly from an animation strategy around retail, around programming, events, culture, and to bring people down there and enjoy the waterfront? It is a tremendous asset that, with proper planning and thinking about what that could actually become, could be something that is as remarkable as any waterfront in the world.
I'm seeing Jason nod his head, and I think, again, we can't wait to invite you to explore Windsor. And Kristina, I'm not sure if anyone saw yesterday on City Council on Monday, they're going to be talking about doing the bird pilot with the micromobility, the scooters, and the bike sharing. So I know that's something that we brought Lime down 2 years ago at Tech Mobility Day, and to really get the ball rolling on talking about micromobility. In fact, for those that don't know, the Grove Hotel in Kingsville is now launched the Grove Company Bikes Company, and they're going to be renting out per day or per hour electric bikes and bike sharing, again, so you can tour wine country. So again, so good to see some of these things move on. Anything to add to the location side from your perspective? And I know I don't want to put you on the spot because I know you're new to the community.
No, I was nodding because Kristina's describing what I just got to see yesterday driving along Riverside, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, look at this place, like, look at this view. It's like, and just the diversity of architecture, and, there's so many cool places to explore. I'm really excited about it. And so, yeah, I can't add anything to the conversation other than I'm living it, and with fresh eyes, and it's really awesome. It's very true. What you're
and that's so important. Fresh eyes is important, right? And that's part of what we wanted to do here is learn. All of you are leaders in your own capacities, and you have so much knowledge to bring back. And again, having fresh eyes doesn't help either. So the next topic is infrastructure. And we know that investing in infrastructure as our populations grow will be critical important. And this includes downtown districting, improving mobility, increasing housing supply, and pursuing development opportunities. And as we heard, anyone missed it, we are getting the start of the new hospital, $9.8 million, I believe, to get the next phase to fruition. And we also have, again, a bridge that will be built in a number of years. So perhaps I'll target this one at Kristina a bit, and is how can Windsor support transformation of our city's waterfront and successful smart city implementation? You live and breathe this every day at Waterfront Toronto. So Kristina, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, it's a very, very big question because there's so many different elements that I think that, you know, as I've watched what's happened along Toronto's waterfront and the considerations that we've taken very intentionally over the past, well, I guess that's been 15 years for them and last 8 years for me of being part of that conversation. And some of the things I just mentioned around animation and programming and being very thoughtful about, you know, what almost curating that experience of what needs to be down there and how do you actually make it appropriate for all ages and all stages, that it's compelling and it feels like an asset that is actually shared by everybody and that people are reconnected. I mean, once you experience it, and Jason's fresh eyes, I mean, when you live there, you tend to actually forget how majestic that asset actually is. And when you see it for the first time, or when you come back and you see it, you're just like, oh, wow, you know, this is just so wonderful. But even thinking about how the parkland is designed there, right now it's a very straight linear park with a few amenities into it. But when you think about how, if we're going to get into active transportation, are there things that we need to be thinking about how people and scooters or bikes are actually sharing the way? Are there things that we could be doing as partnerships, even in thinking about how that becomes an all year round amenity, which is also something that is also a consideration for waterfront communities. It tends to be chilly down there in the winter time. So how do you actually make it an all year around amenity for folks? And, you know, to go back to the smart cities conversation, you will remember, and I know that Dan from CWE did a presentation yesterday, WindsorEssex never really looked at smart cities per se. And that's something that I'm actually fairly intentional still about differentiating between intelligent communities and smart cities. We actually in Waterfront Toronto went through a very long 3-year process on a conversation that became very much about smart cities when we were working with Sidewalk Labs. And I think, you know, as I was going back, there was a lot of things we were doing that in Windsor in the early 2000s that actually were still being talked about in 2020 in the context of that project, that we were so far ahead in WindsorEssex. But the one thing that we actually had done, and I think is really important to keep in mind whenever we're thinking about how technology can intersect, whether it be with government services or public services more broadly, is the human-centric notion of that. There are people involved, no matter how we're making things more effective and efficient and delivering services. And there's going to be needs for people that, you know, perhaps aren't comfortable with interfacing with technology or are not able to interface with technology in the same way. You still have to have those non-tech systems, but tech needs to be very purposeful. You can't have tech just for tech's sake. And we kept hearing that over and over and over again. And I think the one thing that I also weave together when I think about WindsorEssex is what a caring community it is. And I think there's a really unique opportunity in looking at, if you want to refer to it as a smart city kind of lens, but through the eyes of its citizens. And when you think of dignity as sort of the core of how you're trying to deliver those services, is something that's very special to that region. And, you know, mid-sized cities like WindsorEssex, you know, scale is a really interesting conversation. Scale, sometimes you need to be big enough to have that talent pipeline and that economic drivers. But mid-sized cities, right where Windsor is its sweet spot, because impact can be enormous. Mm-hmm. If you think about dropping that pebble in that pond, it's just big enough to generate some amazing ripples, but those ripples can actually turn into like a tsunami of impact when they're done purposefully. And I think there's a really good opportunity there. Windsor has the scale of talent, it has the scale of population to become a model of actually doing things the right way.
I know, Kristina, we're going to lean on you a lot. You know, I've been following you for years and you bring so much insight into this topic. Jason, I'm going to move to you. And 2 words that we don't normally hear in the same sentence is innovation and government. What can we learn from the work that you have been doing at the town of Innisfil? And can government and innovation really coexist? Would love to get your thoughts on that.
I certainly hope so, Yvonne, because I'm sort of staking my claim on it. But yeah, it's not a common thing. I think there's some conditions maybe that we can work together on to help make that even more possible. One of them, I think, is the community's sort of acceptance of trial and error, you know, R&D, piloting. You know, we live in a world where the slightest misstep on a government's part, you know, at any level of government, creates this, you know, Twitterverse of, you know, disaster, and frankly, a lot of bureaucrats spend a lot of time making sure that they don't stick their neck out, they don't stick their minister's neck out or their mayor's neck out, so that they can avoid that. But the truth of it is we all know, if you're going to do experimentation and piloting and innovation and creativity, you have to be prepared that it's not going to work I don't know who can do that, but it can't work every time, right? So how do we fail fast, iterate, and move to the next piece and learn from that experience? I think councils, and I hope not my new political masters are on the call today, but I think they need to think beyond their council term, and I'm hopeful that the county council and city council have that lens, not all the time, but certainly when we're talking about strategy, it's got to be the 20-year, the 50-year, the 100-year vision, right? What can we do to lay the foundation to see things to come to fruition? And then there's been some chat between Mick and a few others on the chat about diversity. And I actually think this is a critical component of innovation, right? I'm a big fan of interdisciplinary teams, cross-functional thinking, different perspectives coming to the table. It's in my world, it's, how does the librarian say to the firefighter, why do you do it that way? And, if the answer is, well, because we've always done it that way, there's probably a really good chance for some creativity and some innovation in that space, right? And it may not be super sexy like an app, but there may be a way that we can, innovate and create better service, tangibly improve the lives of the residents in the Windsor-Essex area. And I think we need to think big, right? We need to be bold. We need to just say, why not, and go. The paralysis by analysis that affects many governments, Kristina probably knows a little bit about that too, can really stifle the ability to do that iteration that's needed. By the time we cross all the T's and dot all the I's, it's already old news. Like we've already iterated, the tech has changed, it's time, we've missed it. We've missed the opportunity. So how do we get comfortable with that? It's not a place that bureaucrats tend to be super comfortable in. But I'm hopeful that my colleagues at the city will embrace trying at least some of that as we move forward.
No, I love that. And I do agree in building, when we look at the Windsor Work strategy is ensuring it's an inclusive strategy where everyone has a role to play and can benefit from that. Nick, I see you're putting in the chat, we're talking about smart cities, the recent pilot project with Ford Mobility and the city of Windsor. So there are some really great things happening. And Nick, thanks for sharing that. I'm really enjoying the real and informational conversation that's happening in the chat. So thank you to everyone. So we're going to move to the future economy, and we know that Windsor manufacturing, we have a huge strength, a history, a skilled workforce. Shelley Fellows is on this call today, who leads our Automate Canada. We have over 400 automation companies in this community. Most people don't know. So we are, transitioning right now from this automotive capital to the automobility capital. And this is going to mean, new enterprises, whether it's spin-offs from existing companies, attracting and luring other companies, or even, working on creating new companies through startups to build out the future of the auto sector. So Nick, I know you're in this space, and I'd love to just get your insight on how the automotive community is shifting and changing, and what should we really be thinking about as companies and as communities?
Sorry, I was double muted. Another bingo word for these.
the mute and the pivot word.
That's right. Yeah, like I think it was said earlier, that vehicles today aren't, the same way they used to be. They're effectively a computer on wheels, right? And the way we're approaching mobility is entirely different. With cars only being a portion of the overall mobility solutions, right? I mean, we talked earlier about scooters as well. I know Ford has several investments in other micro mobility solutions as we go, and we try to leverage the data. Kind of like we've got data streaming also off of all of these devices, right? All of our vehicles now are effectively connected, right? They're streaming, reams of data into our data center that our data scientists are poring over and looking for new insights, new optimizations, new data products that we can offer our customers. And it's kind of changing the entire way that we do business, right? We can identify new ways to be more efficient with our fuel consumption. We can look for opportunities to electrify. We can look for all kinds of new ways to reduce costs for the organization, improve customer experiences in vehicle, reduce warranty claims, all kinds of things like that we can leverage that we never had access to any of that before. And so it just creates this whole new world of possibilities, and frankly, like needs for talent, right? That we need to identify. We have needs for software engineers, data scientists, product designers. These are roles that we didn't really even have in this space just a few years ago. And so it's just absolutely exploding, and right in Windsor's back door, like right here. And so, we need to be aware on both sides, right? The talent that's in Windsor needs to be aware, and the leaders in the community need to be aware, and connecting the two. And then on our side, again, being aware of this great talent resource right in our backyard that we need to make sure that we're leveraging as well.
So for those listening, Nick, where can they find more information? You talked about, that there are lots of jobs in there. I think we're seeing the talent gap widen with how quickly this industry is going. Where is the best way for students? Because I know we have a number of students on specifically the data analytics team from St. Clair College. So where can they find more information about the industry and jobs? If you don't mind maybe sharing that in the chat.
Yeah, I'll definitely put some links to the chat. We've got a couple of opportunities. Ford is offering, we offer summer internships. We offer, we have a Ford College graduate program, which is an amazing way to experience all different parts of the organization and get some real world experience. And, for those who are graduated and ready to truly enter the workforce, we have so many opportunities. And I don't want to mention our competitors, of course, but they also have lots of opportunities. You should totally apply at Ford first. I'm gonna say that, but there's just so much opportunity in this space, and I'll put some of the websites in the chat.
And listen, we're now in this remote working world. So I've seen, just as an example, following some of the job sites, Amazon is posted jobs in Windsor, right, for work from home. So we've shifted now, and I even think about what that does to be more inclusive and to reach people who may not, have access to transportation. So to me, there's a huge opportunity there as well.
Ford has recently announced its policy going forward as well. We're going to be actually taking a hybrid approach to return to work. And so what that means for people in the Windsor region who are, pursuing these opportunities is likely not a daily commute into the office in Dearborn. If you were to, take one of these opportunities, you'd be able to work remotely most of the time and only return to the office when needed, which is just a smarter way to work in general. And so, yeah, it's just it makes I think these opportunities for the talent that's there even that much more appealing for those who maybe aren't interested in a commute to the States every day. And then as you guys, the local community leaders and things like that start building more local opportunities for, Windsorites and those local, there'll be even more that, while they have a physical office in Windsor, they'll be able to, won't require,
That's happening for sure, Nick. Don't worry, you'll be coming back. No doubt.
All right.
There'll be pizza waiting for you.
The pizza probably would definitely get me to come
Kristina,
back.
you too. No, so I want to move on to talent, because this to me is the linchpin or the core of Windsor Works in terms of it working. And Bekim, you talk about talent. I think we've all, the T word has come out of all of our mouths. In fact, it's something that I feel like all I talk about on our national and international tech calls is talent. So there is a war on talent. We know that. So I would love just to open this up to the group on how does WindsorEssex win in this war on talent? Bekim, did you want to start? I know you unmute your mic, so I'll pick on you first.
I'm just trying to be ready so I don't do the, talking on mute thing.
Yeah, no.
I think you do some of what Nicolas talked about, which is offer various opportunities, maybe to work from home. is a big one. I know that we recently shifted some of our focus, and our main hire right now is remote mortgage agents. It allows us to capture, a broader range of individuals who may have experience, which speeds up some of our hiring process. Currently sitting at roughly 20-ish mortgage agents, and we're looking to grow that number to 60 plus before the end of the year. So we've got to move fast, which means that we need to get creative in many ways. At the same time, it pulls away from some of our core mission, which is the revitalization of downtown Windsor. So there's this balance that we're playing right now, because we all have goals of revitalization. Well, if I hire someone who lives 500 kilometers away, that doesn't really help us do that. It may help our business. So we're at this intersection right now, trying to figure out where we stand. But ultimately, we can't help anyone unless we have a great business. So we're looking all over the place, to answer your question, Yvonne, right now. But as we grow and focus in a little bit, I think that it'll help us. Once we're a little bit bigger and maybe more people hear of us organically, they will start seeking us out, and it will become easier to make some of those hires. So everyone's heard of Ford. Not everyone's heard of Edison Financial, that's for sure. A handful of people have heard of Rocket Innovation Studio, but a lot of the young and recent graduates that we speak to, they want to work for exciting, high growth companies. It's not enough to just say we're big anymore. So we're really crossing all ends of the spectrum to figure out who the best fits are for us right now.
Kristina, what are your thoughts on winning this war on talent?
So there's a couple of things, and I think sort of institutionally, places like the University and St. Clair College need to do what Jason was saying about being bold. And I think there's some flags that need to be planted, that WindsorEssex is really a center of excellence in this, whether it be mobility or cybersecurity, and really flaunt that and put that flag out there and say, we are moving with the big guys, and we are actually able to compete to attract not just the academic researchers, but also the students that are vital to that pipeline of talent. And when we think about the talent piece and sort of thinking ahead in terms of these major shifts that happen with our economies, we need to be making sure that our formal educational systems are ready to adapt. And I think we've seen that the wheels are a little bit slow to sometimes turn that tide, but having more intentional industry partnerships in terms of understanding the insight of what's going to be needed 2 to 3 years down the road. What are the programs that are actually going to help feed that talent pipeline? And even backing up further and looking at industry partnerships in the K to 12 spectrum, as the students are starting to think about what they literally want to be when they grow up, how do they actually start to have access and insight to understand what those opportunities are? And there's some interesting models starting to emerge in Toronto in the film, television, production, post-production kind of area that are literally dealing with kids from grade 8 to 12 and giving them exposure into that industry and letting them really unlock their imagination about what they should be thinking about doing, what kind of new programs could they be exploring. And oftentimes, we're not also thinking about the amenities that will keep the talent kind of happy and wanting to come here. And I just, without being alarmist, I think one of the things that Windsor needs to really be thoughtful about, and Jason coming from Innisfil and I'm up in Hamilton, we've seen what has been happening in the real estate market. And you see what's happening right now in Windsor-Essex with regards to the real estate market. And there is something happening that actually is potentially nibbling away at one of the greatest economic advantages that the region had, which was great cost of affordable housing. You had, an ability to have an amazing quality of life there. That's kind of disappearing a little bit. So how do we make sure that that's protected? Because that's a huge economic development asset that people could actually bring their employees in. They could afford a beautiful house with a nice yard and have all of the amenities around them. So I think that really needs to be looked at and quickly, because whether it's just Torontonians who are going, I don't want to live in a 500 square foot condo and I can work from anywhere, or if it's those foreign investors that no longer have access to the Toronto and Vancouver market that are now going, this is an area where I can actually get some rental properties and run that. And that really, you're at that precipice right now of having an area of concern. So I would just kind of raise that, because talent needs proper housing and all those other amenities to it. And the hospital, by the way, is another huge opportunity, in terms of not just new jobs, but in terms of having quality healthcare that attracts new investments and jobs.
And definitely even something I've been thinking about is that, our cross-border med health cluster and the ability to build an innovation sandbox within this hospital where companies can test the latest, medical innovations and be part of, building the medical community of the future. Jason, I'd love to move to you about, on the talent side, being a small town in Innisfil, and also touch on the next, piece of talent is not just the students who want to get jobs, but who want to create their own jobs and looking at it from an entrepreneurial side. So any insight you can share from your experience in the town of Innisfil?
Yeah, for sure, Yvonne. And I would say, Kristina, that I just lived through that real estate experience. I think it was my 5th bidding war to get a house. I mean, this is like hashtag first world problems, but I was shocked. Like I was floored that I don't know what's happening, but I bought at the worst possible time there is in Windsor. But I did get a house, so I'm excited to move into Windsor for sure. Yeah, so Yvonne, I think we've talked probably a lot in different forums about creating the pipeline for startups, the support that's necessary for entrepreneurs. I think from my side, my vantage point at the city, we need to be able to help those businesses navigate what is a really complex regulatory regime, depending on what you're trying to do or where you're trying to do it, particularly with cross-border, conversations. So how do we become facilitators instead of just regulators? And both are important, and there's a healthy tension I think that can exist there, but something that we can do in the small town of Innisfil. I mean, one of the pieces that gave us a lot of success was partnering with DMZ at Ryerson and the accelerator there, and it helped to put Innisfil on the map in that sense that people thought, oh my gosh, like I can commute into Toronto when I have to be there, but otherwise I can have this gorgeous lifestyle and this fabulous quality of life. And I think that story is very similar to what I'm hearing about Windsor, right? I mean, you can live in Windsor, have this fantastic quality of life, but be wherever you need to kind of be when you have to be there, if your work can be remote. So I think it's going to be an interesting kind of unfolding of that evolution as we look at remote work for people in the next couple of years. I think the hybrid is here to stay, and how do we really help that?
Yeah, no, this talent entrepreneurship is something that keeps me up at night. We do have one of the lowest entrepreneurship rates in the province and country, compared to our surrounding regions. And it's something that we know what propels Canada's economy. It is entrepreneurs, small business owners. And I think about, the days of buffalo hunting when it comes to economic development, right? And those days are gone, right? So there's this new days of organic scaling growth. Bekim, you're a great example of, a company that was one, a number of years ago, maybe not even, and now at 55 plus, right? And the ability to look at kind of shifting our lens and growing from within, and obviously attraction in near term will be important. I do want to recognize we've got a couple more minutes. I have some closing comments. I would like to remind everyone, please put your questions and answers into the Q&A box. I do have some questions that were gathered upon registration. So some good questions to come. So just perhaps in closing, I want to target this one at Kristina. You've been very clear about wanting to come back. So what would it take to bring you back to YQG?
This question got me really because in some ways I feel like I never really left, but the more and more, I think COVID has really made me rethink about what's important. And quite frankly, a 3-hour commute every single day is taxing. But I have always been driven by having purposeful work and being able to actually bring all of these lessons that I've had just a tremendous opportunity to learn from, whether it's the actual disciplines around urban planning and design and community consultation, or just the different leadership styles that I've been exposed to over the past 8.5 years. To be able to bring that home and apply that in Windsor-Essex at a time where I think there is such a tremendous opportunity for this region to come out of the pandemic so much stronger, and seeing the themes of the seeds that were planted literally a decade ago coming to sort of more of a mature fruition through the Windsor Works report. There's this moment where I think that there's actually some very intentional kind of purposeful work that would be very compelling to come back and be a part of it. And the conversations that are being had right now are so exciting. I keep holding back from Twitter and just not saying like, oh, goosebumps, but I've said that a couple of times already, admittedly. But yeah, being able to come back and make a real transformative contribution would definitely capture my imagination.
So for those of you that are listening or watching this, please, again, and if anyone is on the line that is maybe looking to come back, Workforce WindsorEssex has one of the best job boards in the community in terms of searchability, jobs in demand, skills in demand. WEtech has another job board that's specific to technology. So if you're a company, you can post for free and leverage that. But all of our jobs also get aggregated into the Workforce WindsorEssex job board. So Kristina, I think back to 10 years ago when we did the top 7, we mentioned Windsor as the sleeping giant. We've heard about, we're very humble and we're very quiet. But, Bekim made a note about marketing. So that's something that I've been very vocal about is storytelling. And it's not just putting billboards, it's being megaphones and amplifying. And I think we really haven't done the best job at telling our story, because when people come here, the first thing we all hear is, how did I not even know this? How did I know you had, 30 plus wineries, a distillery, access to literally every amenity with Detroit, especially across the border? How do we better tell our story? I'd love to hear some of your insights.
Well, if I can just build on that, I think that was actually a really interesting moment for WindsorEssex, because that was the first time that we actually weren't afraid to tell our story and go big. And we actually revitalized all of our economic development assets and our tourism assets in a really short period of time to get ready for that, like literally 6 weeks to redo all that campaign material. It was insane. But the notion of a quiet giant and how we were actually coming into our own was very appropriate in that moment. But there was a swagger within the region. And Yvonne, you were part of that swagger that kind of emerged from that in terms of having a different belief in the region. And the narrative started to change in what we were capable of doing. And it was really, and how long that there was kind of that residue was fantastic. But I think one of the things that really we all have to remember is whether you're here, and I still say here and I'm thinking I'm there, but whether you're in Windsor-Essex or you are somewhere else in the world, you're always an ambassador, right, for that region. And, you should always be the first one that when somebody kind of has that kind of glum comment, that you can pivot it around and give them an interesting factoid and be able to tell them something wonderful about the area, because there's so much wonderful that can be told. So I think every one of us needs to think about how we tell our story and how we tell the city's story to make people understand how magnificent it really is.
Nicolas, Jason, any insights on how do we tell our story better?
One thing that really comes to mind as Kristina's talking is just the call to action for everyone to own that. I think there is a sort of natural tendency to sort of say, oh, like tourism will handle that kind of advertising, and the city will do their kind of advertising, and WEtech will do their advertising. But the reality is each and every one of us has that responsibility, right? As Kristina says, to sort of correct the narrative or at least offer our side of the story. And there's so much to tell that, I think if we all sort of do that, I think it will be really quite powerful. And we will achieve the potential that's there.
I just think it's so easy to be a naysayer, right? We see them, they're out there, but imagine if everyone became an ambassador for their own regions, the power behind that. Sorry, Bekim, I see you on mic, so I'll pass it to you.
I was just thinking about a brand campaign that Detroit did, which is say nice things about Detroit. And this starts with us, really. Like, it starts with us in Windsor right now. I talk to people from all over the country, all over the world, but thinking about Canadians specifically, and we do it to ourselves in many ways. Windsor, small town, like kind of thing. Like, we need to change the way we think about where we live first before other people are going to start believing in our message. Like, there was at one point like I'm from Detroit kind of thing while I was on vacation, and people would be like, oh, what's that like? Murder and everything else. And I'm like, no, actually. But after a while, I'm like, no, it's actually really nice. We have a world-class waterfront. We have innovation happening in the city. We have world-class universities surrounding downtown, nationally ranked top 10 universities all around us. We have all these amazing things going on. Now I'm in Windsor and I hear us, the people on the line, doing the exact same thing all the time. When in reality, as someone who chose Windsor and moved here, I don't see it the same way that maybe everyone else does. Like diversity, yes, there's a ton of that. It's in fact, it's the number one reason I chose to live here, believe it or not. Opportunity, there's a ton, right? You may see it as maybe, drab in some ways. But when I look around, I see opportunity. I see a mortgage industry that's 20 years behind the US. I see technology that's 20 years behind some of the technology that's being done just across the river, right? To me, it's ripe for innovation. It's ripe for opportunity. And we should be talking about that, not bashing ourselves. So I don't know, Yvonne, you come up with the slogan, but I'll buy the t-shirt.
I also
All
think
right.
I also think celebrating the wins that we have too, Yvonne, over time, there have been wins for the region, and the press that they've been getting is relatively understated. I think we need to do a better job celebrating when we do have breakthroughs, with either celebrating local peoples that have been able to access these new opportunities, and or the region, like developing some of that. There's some press, but again, breaking through that stigma is a really tall, really high wall to get over.
And we know we need to support the media industry. We've seen, the media industry shrink, and they play such a key role in this, right? So I know, I hope, that we will get behind our journalists and support them, because we need them. So last question before we do Q&A. So we talked about location, we talked about infrastructure, future economy, and talent. I want to go around this panel and talk about your top wish list project as we look to turn WindsorEssex into a technology or innovation hub. But Cam, I'll start with you. What's your one top project you'd like to see?
Top project as a company or as an individual?
It doesn't matter, whatever you want. If you go for it, if you want to go from an Edison perspective, from an innovation technology perspective. So perhaps maybe
the biggest thing for me is incubating tech talent in downtown Windsor. I think that's above all else. I mean, we have a lot of company goals that we need to hit to make a lot of those dreams happen, but really creating synergy downtown is so big. That's the only way I know how to do it. And I'm a victim of what I know, and what I know is bring a bunch of really talented people into a city center, have them eat together, have them go for drinks after work together, have them work together. And it's amazing what great minds can do if you centralize them. And I think that our biggest opportunity lies in just getting, even as far as like LaSalle and Essex, like Windsor, smart people, have them work together, and great things can happen.
Awesome. How about you, Jason? I know you're new, but I imagine you've got some things you want to work on.
Well, it's not anything new, but I just love the partnership idea. I'm learning so much about how many people are doing really good work now, and it's going to take me probably years to figure everybody out. But want to do that, and I think there's such great things going on. How do we share the information quickly, rapidly, authentically? I think that's really, really key. I'm working on a slogan too. How about something like Mass Bass? Boldly, authentically, shamelessly share how amazing Windsor is. Something like that. I'll buy the t-shirt too, as Bekim said.
That'll be our next innovation challenge, is build the next t-shirt.
Someone's going to start a t-shirt business off of this, but yeah,
there we go. Nick, how about yourself?
I would say skill building. There's a tremendous skills gap. We are not teaching the skills needed to take advantage of these opportunities starting at a young age. I was very lucky. I was exposed to coding from a very young age, and I was, again, blessed to be connected with teachers and programs and forward-thinking people at the time, where I was exposed from starting in elementary school all the way through high school, and had access to computers and technology and coding. And by the time I got to college, I was polishing those skills so that I could come out and do the work. There's a tremendous skills gap people aren't learning to code, and it's 2021, and that's just unacceptable. We need to be investing in our schools. We need to be making sure that the training and the skills align with the opportunities. We need to create boot camps. We need to have community college programs. We need to expand our university training. We're just not doing a good job of training our people for the jobs that are out there. And what ends up happening is those jobs are going to other people. And so that's the best way Windsor can win, in my opinion, is to, I mean, you have a community that's already very skilled and very talented and very educated. But again, right, the skills that these opportunities need, you know, there's still a gap. So let's make sure we're filling that gap, getting those people retrained for these opportunities, and then connecting those people to those opportunities. That I think is so important.
I couldn't agree. And getting them started early. I think about First Robotics. I sit on the board locally, and this is a program that is the most goosebumped, like, again, if you haven't been to a tournament, we haven't had one in 2 years, the most epic experience of your life, seeing high school students build a robot that's 125 pounds in 6 weeks. We have one of the largest gross of this community in Canada here. Nick, I'm sure, I know Ford's heavily involved, likely from a mentorship side of funding perspective, but shameless plug, that program is something I'd love to see, you know, built into that, because I think it's building out. I mean, you're laughing, so I'm hoping you're nodding in terms of agreement.
Well, Ford just announced a partnership with the University of Michigan, actually, in their with their engineering department, to create a whole robotics, you know, arm. And I'd love to see, you know, again, those connections with University of Windsor, with St. Clair College, the community, you know, the people who are designing and creating those programs, getting feedback from industry leaders too, to not just, you know, winging it, right? Making sure the programs make sense and match the skills that they need. So yes, and those programs you described, Yvonne, those were the ones that were influential to me. I mean, not necessarily yours specifically, but, you know, getting that early exposure was so important.
I agree. Kristina, how about you? What is your top project?
Well, it builds on quite a few of the ones that have already been said, but I think there's, you know, this real need, and looking at both STEM and STEAM, and making sure that we don't lose sort of the arts and social sciences in how we're thinking about things and how technology and innovation impacts people, but really looking at not just the hard skills that we have to actually learn, like the engineering, the coding, and all that kind of stuff, but also remembering the approach and philosophy and sort of softer set of skills that go along with that, and start to unlock the imagination. So thinking about things of how do we actually start to cater to make sure that people are exploring their creativity and aren't afraid to be creative and aren't afraid to take risk and are able to be spontaneous and are able to be agile, and growing that capacity and that sort of approach. That starts really, really young. And I remember there used to be a program, I don't know if they're still running it through the schools, but it was called Odyssey of the Mind. And it was a global competition of thought leadership, and it was arts, engineering, all of it. It was multidisciplinary, and it would come together. And it was a really interesting way to get kids thinking about different ways to actually look at a problem and solve for it, whether they only had a short period of time or they had a longer period of time. There was two components to it. But those kind of skills aren't necessarily always being taught in our formal education. So that's where I get back to, how do we actually think back to the partnerships within education to start planting those seeds as well? Because really, you know, at the end of the day, I would love to see an opportunity where, yes, kids are involved, but the community is brought in and understands the value of innovation, the value of creativity. And then there really is a genuine sort of unlocking of this culture of discovery within the city. And I think that would be just so enormously powerful, but it starts so young, and it does rely so much on partnerships, which, by the way, the region is fantastic at. So I think there's a bright future in seeing that one come to life.
Perfect. Well, thank you, panelists. This has been, I think we could talk for hours on this topic. I wish we had more time. I do want to we've got some questions coming in from our audience. And I do want to, one question coming in from Martin. Again, I'll just open this up to the panel and we'll try to kind of cruise through these. Remote workers are moving to Windsor from what this person has heard. And in fact, I've seen it. I've been asked to kind of give the lay of the land to many people. What are the impacts of having these people living but not working in the area, and the impact of not having the employers located here? Anyone want to take that one? Bekim?
I'll take it. Yeah, this is one that we wrestle with all the time, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. It's very easy to say, hey, everyone can work from home. Well, that doesn't really necessarily help Windsor as much. Maybe they're paying property taxes, but for those of you who are watching your property value drive up right now and the market go wild, Jason, you're probably not overly excited about further housing shortage. So I don't think that we have an issue with housing right now. And it does pull the brains away from here. But ultimately, I just think that's the way of the future. I think that people are going to work where they want and live where they want. And that's just going to be the lay of the land moving forward. So, I have a saying that I always joke about, like, don't stand outside and be mad at the wind, right? Like, that is the wind. The wind is coming, whether we like it or not. Change is coming. People are going to work one place and live one place. So if we can create a diverse community that gives people a place that they want to both live and work, that's the key. But again, our start as a company is creating a place where people want to work, and hopefully that's good enough to keep them here.
We have a question from Leo, and I'm going to a bit paraphrase it, but it's talking about the increase in substance abuse, and I'm going to just add on to mental health. And I think it's something we can't not talk about what we've all been experiencing over the last year. And Leo's question was specific to what resources WEtech has. So we always say we're not experts in mental health, but we have partnered with CMHA on developing an entrepreneur's toolkit. And there's lots of insight and support available. But I'd love to just ask this group is, how are you supporting yourself, your teams, your staff throughout this? Because I can tell you, I know my team, burnout is real. In fact, I don't even know how I've lived through the last year of working, I'm working more, and I was already a workaholic. So how are you handling it? What advice do you have? Because I think this is really important, a really important topic. Nick?
Yeah, something I've noticed with my employees, you definitely hit the nail on the head. I saw in the early days of the pandemic, many of my employees moving back home with their families. Young people that had originally set out on their own, and the isolation, it was such a hard thing for them to face, and moving back home with their families was, I think, immensely helpful for them. But I agree, we also are all struggling with working more. I know my wife was like, the other day, she commented, she's like, you don't have a commute anymore, but you're working 2 hours additionally every day. I don't know how much this has really benefited you. And so, yeah, I agree. And I had to have that pause, that mental pause, and say, you know what, I need to be better at drawing those boundaries and making sure that I'm, separating work time from home time. And I'm not picking up my phone and answering emails while I'm hanging out with the kids. It's a naughty habit. So that's been really important, is trying to define like home time, work time, that separation. I used to have that commute that provided that mental, like, oh, I'm going to listen to the news. I'm going to, listen to an audiobook. I'm going to clear my head, come home, reset. And now I don't have that separation. It's like I turn off the computer and I walk upstairs, and I just had that really bad meeting, and now I have to, just turn that off and switch back to being dad and husband.
Everyone's laughing, so I feel like everyone's been there and done that. I've never missed a commute in my life.
A lot of realness to this. And so, yeah, I think we're all struggling, all challenging, all being challenged by that. But it just, like I said, stopping, acknowledging it, and then making sure that we've got those boundaries defined. It's okay to decline meetings. It's okay to put your phone away. Give yourself permission to do that.
I've just said it. It's okay to not be perfect, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. Jason.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I feel like we're all, as leaders, learning new skills and fast, right? We implemented small things like, 30 minutes meetings are no longer acceptable. 25 minutes is the maximum, so that people can stand up, go pee, just some basic stuff that, we found at the beginning, people were Zooming back to back to back to back to back. And it's not the same as working in the office, at least for me, because there's always social interaction, right? You arrive a few minutes early for the meeting, or you stay a few minutes late, you catch up with, whoever, where's the water cooler talk. We were just business. And, we realized just how draining it was. Plus, who really only ever Zooms in the one meeting they're in? I mean, we're all checking our email. We've got 3 different screens, you know, like, so we are like, our brain capacity is in full bore all the time, right? So how do we be, you know, accept that we need to learn these new skills, be vulnerable about the fact that we don't know? And, you know, to Leo's point, there are some serious consequences that have occurred, right? People, it's so easy to crack that beer at the end of the day or open that wine bottle on a Tuesday because you're home and you're there and it's easy, you know. And so how do we actually check in with people, you know, authentically about how they're really doing and what's really going on behind that beautiful background that we've all created, you know, in our Zoom lives, our Zoom personas, and check in. I think it's really key. It's a really good point.
So I'm going to do a couple more questions. I shared these with you prior to today. Some questions we got actually for individually. So I'm going to kind of do rapid fire because I know everyone's got a busy day. So this one is first for Nicolas. So just quickly, what can be done to further accelerate Windsor-Essex strategy to becoming the automobility hub of Canada?
Again, I want to echo the safety insights platform messaging that we did. I think Windsor really, you know, put itself out there by partnering with Ford and leveraging the new safety insights platform. If you're not aware of that, please check the link I put in the chat. But that's a perfect example of that type of forward thinking that's going to make the Windsor region a mobility leader. That, and I think, you know, Windsorites and I don't know, is it Essexonians? I have no idea.
We don't have a word for that, like Windsor-Essexers, YQGers.
Yeah. So
Hoorah is actually what.
I agree.
So I was making sure that, you know, you're empowered and educated with all of the opportunities that are available in the local region, right? Making sure that, you know, you taking advantage of these type of taking advantage of these type of you know, information sharing sessions and empowering yourself so that you can take advantage of the best opportunities in the region and, you know, bring those dollars back to the region and grow the area. Absolutely.
I agree, and public-private partnerships I think are key, and I know Jason mentioned about partnerships being one of his priorities. Kristina, what role do you see mobility playing in the cities of the future? How can Windsor better leverage our beautiful waterfront? I know you've talked about it, but any closing comments on that?
Well, I think, you know, there's a lot of folks on this that are like, Nicolas is a great mobility expert, so I won't touch on that one too much. But what I will say is I do think that, you know, exploring that waterfront as that kind of strategic asset and thinking about it as a sort of active transportation hub of how we can actually get from place to place and celebrate the culture of the city because of how it weaves so well through so many historic districts is a tremendous opportunity. And I think even if you look at how it can be leveraged as green infrastructure as well, and think about things like our flooding and resiliency, there's opportunities there. And as I said, looking at it as an all year round asset, there might need to be some infrastructure investment to make that happen, but I think it is a tremendous, tremendous asset for the region.
I'd love to see an urban beach put downtown somewhere. I know, Bekim, you've experienced the urban beach in Detroit. It's pretty great. So Bekim, this question's for you. How are you selling Windsor to talent outside of the region? And have you had success in bringing people here?
Low cost of living leads the charge. Despite the rising housing costs here, we're still very competitive in terms of housing costs across Windsor. A lot of the talent that we compete for are people who are looking at Kitchener, Waterloo, or Toronto as an option, and Windsor shines in that department. And then just the opportunity. We like builders, people who want to get their hands dirty, even if we're talking about coding or doing mortgages, like getting our hands dirty and doing the hard work that it's going to take to rebuild a city. Toronto probably can't, benefit much from an individual's talents and effort, but Windsor can benefit quite a lot from an individual's effort. I always think about Dan Gilbert again, founder of Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage. He wouldn't have been able to do that in New York City, right? He wouldn't own 150 buildings in New York City with that amount of money. It was made possible by the fact that it was done in a gritty, blue collar town, which was trying to find its way, which had a ton of open ears from the community. People got their mortgages from Quicken Loans because they wanted to support the local community. I'm not going to sit here and start pointing eyes right now, but think about that the next time you walk into your RBC bank or your TD bank to get your mortgage. There's someone right here trying to build a city up by doing mortgages. And only then can we become this great technology disruptor and hire 5,000 people in the next 10 years, like we're hoping to do. Like that all starts with being supported by the local community. Hopefully this sparks a bunch of emails after this. This was not meant to be a marketing and sales pitch, but yeah, I mean, it's support local. People want to be part of a movement, and that's really the two I'll leave you with, is being part of something special, and low cost of living is what we pitch.
That is what has kept me here for the last 10 years. And I've had plenty of opportunities to leave. And I said, the being part of, sometimes you have to build what you want to be a part of. And I signed up for that as soon as I graduated. Jason, last question for you. We talked a bit about this already, but how do you view the entrepreneurial landscape in Windsor currently? And is it on your agenda as you look to take over your new CA role?
Yes and yes. So I don't know the landscape well. I'll be totally honest. I'm still 100% learning. So please send me notes. I want to connect with everybody and get a better sense of the landscape and where the gaps are, what we can do to support it from the city side. But I will say that entrepreneurialism, I think, it's a bit cliche to say, but it's the secret sauce, right? Like it's the stuff that's going to make Windsor what it can be, Essex what it can be. And so just so excited to imbue that in the bureaucracy, all levels of government, and just work together to make this happen. It is going to be the piece that changes the game.
And I know, Bekim, I'm sure you will be more than open to sharing your experience. And obviously, Jason, as the head of WEtech, and again, we're one of many partners. Happy to do a 101 of what's going on and all the great partners here. So again, thank you so much to our panelists, and thank you for all the questions and discussions. Really appreciate everyone staying on. I know everyone's a bit kind of virtual event fatigue is real, especially with the beautiful weather and soon to be patio parklets and patios open. I just want to do, again, a big thank you to our homecoming panelists for sharing their passion, their insights, their resources, and really to help us collectively explore how we turn Windsor-Essex into a hub of innovation. And it really was an absolute pleasure for me to lead this conversation and virtually welcome you back. And again, I hope to see Kristina and Nick, when the border opens, Kristina and Jason, to see you in your new role, excelling. But before we say goodbye, I do have a few important announcements to make. First, there's still a lot more Tech Week to come. Happening later today, our Detroit partners at the Detroit Mobility Lab are hosting, in partnership with Windsor-Essex Economic Development Corporation, a How to Pitch the VCs. This panel discussion will talk about the best and the worst of practicing your pitches in front of venture capitalists. Tomorrow is the kickoff to the second annual Win Hacks. This is a 3-day hackathon bringing together the mobility industry. These are leaders who are really changing the way people and goods move. And guess what? This is the second year they've done it, and they have over 1,000 students on Discord. 1,000 students. It's absolutely amazing. You can register and to apply, or if you're a student or a professional, you can apply up to next Friday, or I guess not next Friday, tomorrow on Friday. The week has gone by really fast. And we also have on Sunday Canada Learning Code, Ladies Learning Code session. This is going to be a HTML and CSS session. All these events are free, so feel free to join in on these. And again, it is so important to activate these opportunities. There are volunteers doing them, they're free. And sometimes, if we don't see the registration or the attendance, it takes away from a lot of those opportunities. So I really encourage you to leverage and engage with those opportunities. And we also are announcing our Tech Award winners this week, 2 every day leading up to the close of Tech Week on Sunday. So feel free to check out some of the Tech Award winners that have already been released and that will soon be released. And you will get a follow-up email from us. It'll include this video, any of the takeaways. We have someone that's going to be writing up a nice story on today on some of those key takeaways. And you'll also get a copy of that Tech Homecoming digital print that was created by our amazing director of marketing, Jean-Marc Vachon. And for those wishing you to network, we are going to extend our remote time so you can stick around into the networking platform if you have time. And finally, it's so funny because we all talked about this. Let's not stop the discussion here. WindsorEssex is moving, and the easiest way that we can continue to tell our story and to thrive is to be a megaphone for the great stories, the great companies, the great entrepreneurs, the great things happening here. A tweet, a TikTok, a Clubhouse, whatever it is, keep talking about what we're doing, connect with these great people. They're all on LinkedIn. Most of them, I believe, are on Twitter. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. And until next time, let's keep YQG moving. Again, thank you, panelists. We'll see everyone in the networking platform. You're sticking around. Thank you. Bye. Thanks.